Hey mate, are you struggling to figure out if stretching is actually a good use of your time? Or is it even good for you? Or is it bad for you? Let's check it out. To answer the first question, is it good or bad for you? It is definitely a good thing to do stretching. It's not going to be bad for you unless you overdo it in some way. You keep stretching, maybe you stretch too much where you actually give your body pain. Overall, it is a good thing. Anything that's going to get you more in tune with your body, help you to relax, or getting a bit of more range of motion, it's gonna be a good thing. It's definitely not bad. But what does it actually do? Well, the one thing that we know stretching definitely does do is give you more range of motion temporarily. So if you stretch your arm over your head for 30 seconds or something like that, and then you try to move your arm again, you're probably going to get a little bit of extra range of motion. If you stretch for a little bit longer, generally you're going to get a little bit more range of motion. But what happens is it doesn't always last that long. What stretching also does is makes you feel good. And what I mean by that is you do a stretch, it feels good to stretch out a tight muscle, okay? It makes it feel less tight at that certain situation. And it also does upregulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. That's why a lot of us like to do it at the end of our workouts. So it can also help with sending more blood flow to the certain muscle that you're stretching. Now, what happens when you actually stretch that muscle, it actually restricts the blood flow to that area. But then when you come out of the stretch, more blood goes back to that muscle. But the primary reason we use stretching, well, I would say I use stretching for, is to get temporary range of motion increase in a certain muscle or a certain joint. If I'm going to use stretching, I can almost guarantee that if I'm going to stretch something, it's going to move that little bit further. So if I want to get a bit more range of motion from a client with their hamstrings or with their hip or with their shoulder, stretching is definitely an option for that. Though there are a million different other ways to get more range of motion. And there are different types of stretching. So you got static stretching, there's active stretching, you got PNF stretching, contract, relax, all these different types. I mostly favor more on the active side of things rather than the passive side of things. So if you think passive stretching, that's more just sitting into a stretch, and that's really kind of buying into that, relaxing into that stretch, feeling a bit better, getting that parasympathetic nervous system to fire up so you feel nice and relaxed. So something that's great to do at the end of your workouts, or just help with relaxation. That's why people enjoy yoga so much, I suppose. So the other one is more your active range or your active stretching. This is more something where you might have heard of the term dynamic stretching, where you're pushing your leg, in and out of motion. This is like this kind of stretching where you're going in and out of your end range as a part of a warm-up. Or the other way to do it is where you're doing something called PNF stretching, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular feedback, where it's basically, you get to your end range, you contract for 5 seconds, and then relax, and then you get that bit extra range in there. I mostly prefer the active range of motion because it's shown to be a bit more effective than just your static stretching, because it gets more your brain involved in it, your muscles involved in it, and it's just much more active. Whereas static is much more, you're just sitting into the stretch, breathing deeply, and then just relaxing. But the thing is, there's a lot of myths going out there about stretching, saying that stretching does all sorts of things when it either doesn't completely or it does very little, okay? A great example of that is a lot of people do their stretching at the end of their workouts, which is completely fine, especially with your static stretching. But what I'm telling you is, if you think that is going to really help with your recovery or make a huge difference with your muscle soreness, it probably isn't, okay? There's a lot of different studies, if you scroll through Google or any of the journals, that a lot of them actually show that stretching does not very much when it comes to helping with muscle soreness and recovery. Another big myth is that it stops you from being injured. A lot of people think is, if I'm really flexible, then I'm not going to get injured. Or I got injured because I don't stretch enough or I'm not flexible enough. I can tell you that this does not mean anything when it comes to injuries. In fact, myself, I'm very flexible, and that's probably the biggest reason why I got so many shoulder issues and injuries. It's great to have that flexibility where you can throw your arm over the head, but if you can do that, but you don't have the strength or the stability, getting yourself into all these different ranges that you don't know how to control, it can actually give you pain or injury. Another one is that stretching will give you long-term flexibility, okay? I can say this for the most part, it's not the case. Like, the stretching will only give you short-term flexibility. If you stretch yourself into a new range that you haven't been there for a long time, yes, you can keep stretching every day, right? And you'll get further and further. But as soon as you stop doing that stretching, it's most likely going to go back to where it was before, back to where your brain feels most comfortable. If you're using stretching to get extra range of motion, you need to be able to do other things. So if you're stretching to get your shoulder way overhead, you need to make sure that you get that extra range of motion, but then you also teach your body to integrate it into your daily life, i.e., try to gain some more stability in that new range that your body hasn't used in a long time, and then teach your body how to get strength in that range. Use it or lose it rings so true with stretching, because if you stretch into a new range, but then you forget about using it, you're wasting your time. So overall, I would say stretching is a short-term solution, okay? So it gives you that little bit extra range of motion that you need to, get a bit better range overhead and whatnot, and that's completely fine. Just don't think that just by stretching at the end of your workout, getting that extra range of motion or that extra flexibility is really gonna completely get rid of your muscle soreness, increase your recovery, or stop you from getting injured, because it really isn't. What stops you from getting injured is moving the right way, choosing the right exercises, conditioning your body to your workouts, not overreaching, and not pushing too far. When it comes to recovery, you're better off focusing on your sleep, eating, micro and macronutrients, and also doing some more active recovery. So I'm not saying that stretching is a complete waste of time. It's just sometimes it can be misused, or you're doing stretching and you're thinking it's doing one thing where really it isn't doing that thing almost at all. So the way I get the most out of stretching with my clients, my biggest focus is on active and dynamic stretching. So dynamic stretching, like I mentioned before, is going in and out of that range of motion before you work out, basically greasing those wheels, getting your brain more comfortable in maybe a deep squat or a hip hinge position, or even just with your arms going shoulder dislocations. Whereas with your active stretching, I'll still do this at the start of the workout, which is I like to use stuff like your PNF stretching with the contract relax technique. So this means basically getting into a position, holding for 5 seconds and then relaxing for a few seconds and repeat, okay? So that means you can gain a little bit of that extra range of motion for the rest of your workout. What you do is you gain that extra range of motion, follow that up with other exercises which will help you to keep that range of motion, just so that the next time you come in for that workout, instead of stretching past all the way here and then it coming back, you're gonna slowly gain some shoulder flexion or whatever you're working on. When it comes to static stretching, I'm totally cool with people using that. I would recommend more so doing the static stretching when your body's real warmed up at the end of a workout. It's a great way to finish your workouts, to relax, get that parasympathetic nervous system firing up, and also increase some blood flow in the surrounding muscles. It's a great way to, focus on your breathing and just really overall feel better at the end of your workout. Anyway, that just about sums it up with my opinion on stretching. So if you're going in and out of the gym because you keep getting out of pain and then back into pain whenever you go back to lifting, I've got a special guide for you. So this is called the 7 Lifts to Bulletproof Your Body After Injury. So I'll drop that down in the description down below. You can click on the link and download that. Otherwise, this is me done for today. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to give me a like, write a comment below, and please don't forget to subscribe to see more great videos just like this. Remember, my name's Adam, and I help you return to the gym and stay there.